Wow. Thank you for reminding us why we are here in the first place. Thanks, Wayne.
You're very welcome.
Alma?
Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. This is the third session of a series of planning meetings that we have been called together. And I'm sorry about that phone. We have been called to discuss plans for the Orleans Parish Prison. I am so delighted to be part of this organizing group, which includes the wonderful Matt Schwarzman, who is our technological guru tonight, as well as Tueri Burns from Bar None. She's a wonderful organizer, and she will be our timekeeper. She's going to keep us on track. Also, we have from the organizing committee, Jean Maneri, who is my counterpart, running a group of art lawyers called Ella, the Ella Project in New Orleans, and he's also a member of the Louisiana Art Council. And who am I missing here that's on our organizing committee? Did I get everybody, Matt?
Randy Fertel is here.
And Kathy, but she's not here.
Exactly, yeah. So this is our third meeting in a series of planning sessions which have been called together to develop recommendations for the newly elected sheriff of New Orleans, Ms. Susan Hudson. And this work started before she was elected. I was called to an organizing meeting around her campaign. It was very exciting, and the inevitable happened. Talent won. Talent, experience, and social justice are taking the helm of the Orleans Parish Prison. And because of my work with Louisiana, and you'll hear from my colleague Lori Brooks as well, we were in Baton Rouge 2 years ago, just before COVID broke out, to talk about how arts could be expanded in the prisons in Louisiana. It's part of a national project that we're involved with to expand arts and corrections in several states, including Louisiana. So my background with California Lawyers for the Arts brought me to Louisiana, and I'm very happy to be part of this team. They asked me to facilitate tonight's discussion with several very well-known and prominent leaders in the field of arts and corrections from around the country. Of course, I was delighted to be able to have a chance to reach out to people I know and to find, to become acquainted with some others who will be joining us as well. I just want to mention that if anybody does have questions along the way, please put them in the chat. We'll be looking for those. We will be ending on time at 6:30, 8:30 your time, and everything else in between. We will be having a wonderful discussion. And without further ado, let's start with some introductions of the people who are on the panel. We have a list that we're going to follow, and they're going to introduce themselves, and then we'll start our discussion. We are starting with Amy.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Alma, for the invitation to be here. I'm very much looking forward to the conversation. My name is Amy Dowling, and I'm calling from the Ramaytush Ohlone land in San Francisco. I am a teacher. I co-facilitate a course here at the University of San Francisco called Performing Arts and Community Exchange. And it's a class that takes place, over the years, it's taken place in the San Francisco jails. It also currently takes place in the Central California Women's Facility. The focus of the course is to collaborate between USF students and artists who are incarcerated. A key component of the class is to collect the aesthetics and stories that are specific to the incarcerated artists, and then present them via Zoom. We're fortunate enough to Zoom in to the Central Valley, and we also work through JPay. The students take direct action, legislative action, writing letters to the governor, etc., And these direct actions are specific to what has been asked of us from the incarcerated artists. So direct action is an essential aspect. We also compensate all the inside artists. I write grants so that we can pay, which is a key component to the work as well. The art is grounded in the aesthetics and the stories of those inside.
Right.
And then I just want to say one more thing, which is I'm also a state sanctioned artist, which means I have been given permission to go inside of San Quentin. And I say state sanctioned because my role in San Quentin is simply to hold space for artists who are incarcerated there so they can gather and create their art. I've been doing that since 2013. And the company that has formed out of that holding of space is called the Artistic Ensemble. And we are also actively working on the outside now. So thank you again. And I look forward to further conversation.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Go on to Eric.
Actually, I asked Eric if he wouldn't mind waiting for a moment, Alma. I'm aware that Tasha has a time constraint and her first name puts her at the end of the list. So I thought we might allow her some grace.
Of course. All right, Tasha.
Oh, thank you. I hope I can stay. I'm so fascinated by all of your work. My name is Dr. Tasha Golden. My first career was as a singer-songwriter. As I toured for a lot of years as a pop musician, somehow made my way to public health science. I'm a public health scientist studying the intersection of the arts and health. And most recently working on a project in Massachusetts that is the first arts on prescription model in the US, connecting healthcare providers with a variety of arts institutions across the state, theaters, fine arts of many kinds, including state park systems and nature trails, zoos, all kinds of different cultural experiences connected with different healthcare partners that utilizing these cultural experiences to support the health and well-being of their patients. And part of this, because my training is in public health, health equity, and I also founded a program for incarcerated youth as well that's related to arts. This topic is very important to me, but looking at health equity to think about, and also the definition of health as being not only the absence of disease, the WHO said in 1946, not just the absence of disease, but also the presence of complete mental, physical, and social well-being. And so I'm interested from a health equity standpoint and a social determinants of health standpoint, how do the arts help us not only address that absence of harm and disease that we're interested in, but also that presence of well-being and quality of life that everyone deserves. So how do the arts help us not only reduce suffering and symptoms of all kinds of health conditions, which we have increasing evidence that they do, but also how do they give us increasingly equitable opportunities to thrive? And of course, that starts with the most oppressed populations among us, ideally. And so figuring out how to connect the arts with this population in New Orleans, I'm really looking forward to supporting it however I can and hearing more from you all this evening.
And thank you, Tasha. And where are you today?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I spend most of my time working for Johns Hopkins University, but I'm located in Louisville, Kentucky.
Very good. Thank you so much for joining. Hassan?
Hi, everybody. Hassan Davis. Hey, Tasha from Kentucky. I'm from Paint Lick, Kentucky. I'm actually
nice.
up in Cincinnati now. I've got a flight out early in the morning, and that storm that just hit New Orleans is coming this way, so had to get up early to make sure I could be out. I am the former commissioner of juvenile justice for the state of Kentucky, former vice chair of the Federal Advisory Committee on Juvenile Justice for the nation and territories, and I got my first arrest at 11 and wound up on probation the rest of my childhood. I have two brothers serving life sentences. Art was that thing that sustained me and gave me a way out. I'm a teaching artist. I have 3 one-man shows, historical interpretations that I've toured for the last 25 years nationally, telling the stories of Black men in America's pivotal moments, making sure that we don't lose sight of the presence and power of all of us at all those pivotal moments. As Commissioner of Juvenile Justice, or more broadly in the justice system, I've been working to pull the art to the center of justice work. Working with Carnegie Hall and the Create Justice folks. I know the Prison Arts Project was a part of that, if I remember right. And there's this great coast to coast conversation going on. Even at this time, you may or may not know that there have been a substantial amount of dollars in the current legislative bills going through that are mandating or suggesting that OJJDP and Department of Justice actually align the arts as a part of what juvenile justice work is writ large. And so I've been in that conversation for the last 6 months, trying to figure out how we get it into the administration and to the folks who can then begin to grant dollars out. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Matt and I go way back as artists, and I'm glad to have been invited to get into this conversation. I'm looking forward to see how I can support this work and lean into it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Imani?
Hey, you guys, good afternoon. So I am Dr. Imani Shepherd. I am the Director of Medical Education and Social Scientific Research at the Medical Humanities and Health Disparities Institute, which works out of New Orleans and Houston. I'm also an assistant professor and co-director of bioethics and medical humanities and a medical education facilitator at Carle College of Medicine. And so I am currently in Urbana-Champaign in Illinois, where they think it is springtime, even though it is still 35 degrees, but whatever. So I've been doing this kind of work for well over the last decade, particularly with partnering with medical humanities programs. I'm the first African-American to have a PhD in the medical humanities in the United States. And Carle, Illinois is the first medical school that also has engineering and the arts in the United States. So I've been doing this kind of work for a while, particularly when I was at University of Texas Medical Branch. We have one of the only BSL-4s in the country, but there's also a prison specifically on the campus. So just being able to look at the interconnection between the medical humanities, specifically in teaching, medical literacy and using arts as a tool for healing, but also as a means of articulating one's, phenomenology, the experience that particularly African-American men have undergone, via, structural violences and varying oppressions, even prior to birth, right? In many ways, African-American men in particular are pre-criminalized and then have to work the rest of their lives to prove otherwise, which, never actually occurs, right? So I've been doing that kind of work, also partnering with community activism and other organizations such as Bar None to help build libraries. So last year we donated approximately 2,600 books throughout New Orleans to help build libraries and varying community organizations that work with recidivism. We've also been doing things like Readers Theater and using art as a means of reflection on intergenerational trauma. And so the idea is that a reflection of intergenerational trauma and being able to look at, sort of what happens on the back end and how that precipitates negative health outcomes and, increases the potentiality of, mental health issues down the road. It's been a lot of the work that I've been doing. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Lori?
Hi. Wow. Tough act to follow. My hat off to you, man. You're amazing. Anyway, so I'm Lori Brooks. I'm the director of the Prison Arts Project. We're celebrating our 45th anniversary this year. And I've had the great honor of working in this field at this organization for 32 years. And our model is simply to hire the best artists we can find to go inside and offer meaningful art programs, music, literary, theater, creative writing, poetry, what we just try to bring in what's local to the prison. They put prisons in very out of the way places in California. So it's a challenge. But I had the great honor too, a few years ago, to work about 15 years with the National Endowment for the Arts to bring artists into the federal prison system. And So I got to meet a lot of really terrific people and do some work in the South and all over. And I just want to say one thing about the silver lining for us around the pandemic was that because we were doing, I like to describe it as lessons on paper through a keyhole, we were able to hire a lot of return residents, people who were previously involved in the prisons, residents of the prison system, to go back or to teach, to give lessons. And now that we're going back in, they have the experience, they're a known quantity. So we've got, I think we've got about a dozen people that are teaching inside, and it's just such a beautiful full circle. So anyway, thank you. It's a real honor to be here. I happen to be in Oceanside, which is the land of the Pala, Poma, Pachanga. And anyway, I live in Santa Cruz, which is a wonderful place to live. Anyway, so is New Orleans. I'll come visit anytime.
Thank you. I don't think Rodessa's here. I don't see her.
No, do we want to let Eric go out of alphabetical order? He was gracious to give Tasha his spot.
Yeah, great.
Eric
And
Booth.
so Wayne is gonna, and Wayne, thank you so much for providing that wonderful improv. It really spoke to this moment because we know that things are tough right now at this moment in New Orleans with the tornado and all of that. And there was conversation about postponing this, and we said, no, we're just gonna keep going, keep moving forward. And you pulled us through, Wayne. Thank you so much. And
Happy to be of service.
please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Wayne Cramer. I'm the co-founder of Jail Guitar Doors. We're based in Los Angeles. We've been active in arts and corrections for 13 years. Our instruments and our programs are in 160 prisons across America. We're on about 7 California prison yards, and we basically show people a way to express complex and often painful feelings and memories positively through the process of songwriting. Over the last 7 or 8 years, we've expanded our reach into young people that are involved in the criminal justice system. And we recently completed construction on the Capo Community Arts Programming and Outreach Center here in LA, which has a full recording studio, a computer lab, performance space, classroom space, that we're very excited about, because we learned from the kids that if we don't have something for them when they're released from custody, they just go back to banging. And that's a dead end, and they know it. I mean, they'll tell me, Wayne, if I could do something else, I'd do something else. But I think we can expose them to other kinds of activities, career paths, employment, in the entertainment industry here in Los Angeles. 1 in 7 jobs is an entertainment industry job, and I think we can interest kids in doing what a key grip does, or what a picture editor does, or a sound editor does. They kind of all come wanting to be rap stars, and I'm not discouraging that, but I want to show them some other realistic possibilities that are good alternatives to spending your adult life in the California Department of Corrections.
Right, exactly. Thank you. How about you, Eric?
Hi, everybody. Eric Booth. I'm I'm speaking to you from the land of the Esopus community of the Lenape Nation here in the Hudson River Valley. And I guess I'm sort of the counterbalance to all the other speakers on this call who've made such deep dives into this field. And mine is much broader and wider. I work with artists, teaching artists, to prepare them for, I guess you'd call it, social impact work, one of the main channels of which is working in incarcerated settings. I've worked in any number of programs preparing the artists and working with the staff of the facility to finesse that kind of partnership. And I've had the good fortune of seeing programs all over the world and getting a sense of how it's the same and different in different parts of the world. And personally, my fascination is the miraculous power of activating the artistry in a human in any setting, but particularly within the challenging settings of incarcerated living. The potency of that act of activating the innate artistry of a person, and I have seen it across the widest possible range of settings, that human act itself and the skill to activate it authentically, genuinely, quickly, in spite of the challenges of the circumstance, is the endless inspiration that brings me back to this work again and again.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you. And we've been joined by Rodessa, I think. Rodessa here? Great. Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your work and where you're at today?
Yes. And I brought along Angela Wilson, who has been working with me for the last 25 years. But Angela I met Angela while she was incarcerated. And she's gone on to be a fabulous teacher. We're here at Hamilton College teaching a workshop in writing. It's actually the methodologies around writing our way out, helping an inmate write their way out of their confusion, out of even their incarceration. And at the same time, taking writings and using them to make theater that speaks to the lives and times of people in lockdown. I came to this work totally by invitation by the California lawyers, the California Arts Council asked me to come in and teach aerobics to incarcerated women almost 50 years ago now. And out of that, I relied on my creative survival instincts. What could I really make happen in this place? What could I really make happen in a place where more and more women were going to jail than we'd ever seen? We're talking 20 or 30 years ago. And they weren't interested in aerobics, but they were interested in storytelling. And I started to craft ways to get them to share their stories, to talk about their mishaps, their narrow escapes from death, their strange relationships with men and anger and drugs. But we've turned it all into theater. And we're here at the courtesy of Professor Nancy Rabanowitz, who is actually a classical literature teacher here at Hamilton, because we use a lot of deep ancient texts, Medea, Pandora, Hercules. All this has become the basis for stories that I, as the leader, craft into a basic universal tale, and then we proceed to hang the lives and the struggles of people in lockdown on. So I've been doing this work now. Angie and I've been doing this for—
Well, you've done it for 30 years.
For 30 years.
I'm about 23.
And now Angie is actually the person that's still working inside. Right now with the pandemic, everything has been stopped. But Angie, I'm so proud of her. She actually is a programmer in the city jails right now, and she's running the Women's Resource Center. And all of this came out of her work with me in the Medea project, that she literally has a full position at the jails, and she's still available to us and to them. But right now, we are here with another ex-offender, Felicia Skaggs, and we're teaching writing classes here at Hamilton. And that's why I'm late, because we got into this incredible conversation about mothers and fathers and loneliness and fear, and with the students who are writing stuff, writing their way out of various situations that they're living with. It's been amazing. Who knew, with prison writing, that it could be such an incredible tool for everybody getting a little bit freer.
Wonderful. And Angie, would you like to say something to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, I'm Angela Wilson. I'm here in Hamilton. We do have a theater class that we're teaching outside right here, and it's very exciting. And I do work in San Francisco. Miss Jones found me while I was incarcerated in the San Francisco County Jail in 1998, around August. And I have not shot dope or got in serious trouble since that time, and had afforded the opportunity to go to the they were screaming over there, sorry, go to the I got a scholarship at the American Conservatory Theater, and I work as a supervisor in the San Francisco County Jail. I develop and implement programs. Historically, I worked with men, and now I'm working with women, the Women's Resource Center, as Ms. Jones said, in San Francisco.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that.
I'm looking forward to retiring. Okay, sorry.
Very, very inspiring to hear from both of you. This group is called the Arts, Culture, and Healing at the Orleans Parish Prison, or ARCH. And so we've heard some great stories already. Really super inspiring. So I want to start out with a question for all of you. And I understand some people have to leave early. We understand maybe we can start with Tasha and Amy, because I know they're leaving early. Can you describe a challenge in this work and how you overcame it? We start with you, Tasha.
Well, I can speak about, prison arts or like arts and corrections, but Matt had asked me to come and speak about social prescription as an idea. So I'll speak to that.
Exactly.
Yes.
Speak to your work. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm tempted, because my work also includes this program called Project Uncaged, and I'm like, I'm just so delighted to talk with all of you all. So this is a mashup of many of my passions. But I'll speak to social prescription and challenge in that work. As you all can imagine, people expect that there's a lack of evidence. Can art really be prescribed by a healthcare provider? Is this, if I am seeing a patient, is it worthwhile to refer them to some kind of cultural experience, or to include some kind of cultural experience in a payer model like insurance? Is that going to do enough for their health to make that worthwhile? How do we develop the evidence for that to be worthwhile? So that is one of the barriers. But what's interesting, increasingly, there's so much more evidence over time about how the arts benefits our health, that what's coming from our more recent studies that you all might be interested in is that the barrier to involving the arts in actual imaginations of how health and well-being can be conveyed to more and more people is not the evidence so much. That's a little bit of a straw man at this point. The barrier is really a structure by which to do it. So if you talk to healthcare providers, you're really not going to find a healthcare provider who's like, yeah, but I don't really think that my patients are going to benefit from listening to music. Like that person doesn't exist. Like that's a fake. I mean, I'm sure they exist someplace, but that's not a common healthcare provider or doctor or nurse practitioner issue. The issue is that, like, even if they wanted to say to their patients, what might benefit you is to expose yourself to visual arts a bit more, or to get some exposure to different types of music, or even learn an instrument, or whatever the case might be, try some expressive writing or poetry or things like that. They don't have a way to, like, what do they recommend other than just like this very broad generalization of like, how about art? But when you give people a structure by which to specifically say, how about this? Or like you all have probably encountered this when you come to a system and you say, I have this program, it's like a package, I can just bring it to your institution, a lot of times they're like, oh, sure. Like why would we say no? I mean, there's reasons that people say no, but so we're interested at this point in social prescribing, in how to provide a structure by which the powers that be, unfortunately, they are powers. A lot of times the health system has a lot of power, insurance systems have lots of power. How do we provide a structure by which it becomes far more easy to connect people with the things that we know develop their well-being?
That's really interesting. And have you had any success with that structural challenge?
Well, social prescribing in the US is so new that there aren't reliable structures that we've been able to test out. The UK has a structure that's based in the national health system that works for them. It's much easier than here without universal health care. Although I think that we have an interesting opportunity here where even the term social prescription is a little bit hierarchical and a little biomedical. It assumes that there's a person with power that prescribes. Like, prescription isn't a term that we throw around for each other. Like, I'm not going to prescribe one of you music, right? I'm not a prescriber. So there's a power structure built into the system of social prescription that's been experienced in other countries. I think in the US, we have an opportunity, if we want to take it up, to think less about maybe social prescription than about community referrals and leveling up the way that we've done community referrals. So how do healthcare providers not only refer their patients to arts institutions, but I would say, how do arts institutions refer your participants to the social services and the community needs that they have? And as a quick note on that, many of us who have worked in arts situations are often the first responders to various mental health concerns. We're often the first person that somebody's disclosed something difficult to, but arts and culture institutions are not given the power to refer somebody to prescribe somebody to that we want to prescribe. But even so often just referring them to social services or a mental health care practitioner is not something that's built into our community structures. And that's what I'm advocating for most recently.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. We appreciate it. You remind me of a state senator in California when we were presenting evidence about the benefits of arts programs in the prisons, and we had a demonstration project with pre and post evidence. She said, thoughtfully, well, if it works in the prisons, maybe it will work in the schools. Duh. Well, we're still working on it.
Yes.
What about you, Amy? I know you've got to leave in a few minutes. Would you approach that question too? What's been a big challenge for you, and how have you overcome it?
Oh, it's such a good question. I just want to give a shout out to Angie. Hi, Ange. Hi, Rodessa. So good to see you guys. So yeah, I just getting really honest here. I've had some real deep conversations with the people that I work with about white supremacy and cultural colonialism and aesthetics. And as a white woman from a middle class family, though my nephew was arrested and spent 15 years behind bars, I am not from the community that's most impacted by this illness, by this cultural illness that we are suffering, right? So it's Black and Brown people and Black and Brown communities. And so I feel so grateful for the conversations that I've been having with my colleagues about what it means to be a white person doing this work and what is my role in doing the work. And so some of the things I've been talking about and thinking about and taking action around having to do with right relationship with the work. So that means for me personally, this is my personal journey. It means, really following the idea of nothing about us without us, which is a call from many of the people that I work with. And so implementing sort of ways to do my own grieving process of letting go of work that I care deeply about, letting go of my leadership role, and really fostering leadership in the people who are system impacted that I'm in relationship with. So I'm so blessed to be in relationship to Raina Brown, who is someone who will be taking over my course at the university in the fall. I will be there to support her, but she will be hired by the university as the lead teacher. And I think this is really like for those of us who are not from the communities that are most impacted, this is the question that is the foremost on my mind, is how do we lift up leadership from system impacted individuals and of artists who are coming out of the system to lead these programs and to get the grants and to infuse their aesthetics and their culture into the work. And those of us who are not of those communities to, ask the questions about what can we do to support your leadership? How can we be present and continue? It's not about disappearing. It's not about withdrawing, but it's about using our role in a very different way. So passing, and doing the grieving work. I think, I've been doing this work for over 20 years. So I got some work to do, let go of it, to be really honest and really let go in a particular way.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. Yeah. So that's where I'm at right now. Thank you all. I'm going to have to run off because I got to go teach, but it's been a real pleasure. I'm going to stay for another 5 minutes, but I hope to continue the conversation.
We'll be in touch, and my colleague Tweri has reminded me that racial justice is an important part of our theme here. I might have left that out when I described arts, but it's arts, racial justice, culture, and healing.
Yeah.
That is a big prescription. So we've got some good work to do, very serious work. Who wants to go next with this question about challenge and overcoming it? I know that we've all had some experience with that. How about you, Eric?
I'll take a shot at that. Let me say first, it's sort of the back end of my conversation here. Most of the artists I know who have gotten through let's call it the initiating period of the work, find it to be the most satisfying work they do. They find it to be a quality of connection that they dream of getting in most of their work, but the availability, the directness, the rawness, and the clarity of the impact is so strong, they treasure it. However, in that orientation period that not everybody makes it through happily, a lot of what is the challenge is unrealistic expectations, certainly preconceptions. There, on the artist side, there's some saviorism that informs the kind of wish to go be helpful to the needy. And sometimes that gets burned off by reality. That can be prepared for a little bit before it happens. But where the challenge falls away is when the artist rises to the welcome, and it's a very particular kind of welcome. It's not an easy welcome. It's open, but it has a kind of demand to it to be for a kind of listening, a kind of authenticity, and a kind of directness that is strong medicine for artists who aren't used to working in those settings. They have a whole lot of learning in a short period of time, and when they get the taste for it, it is the taste. And I also want to just mention the importance, and thank God, increasing presence of artists in this work who have actually come from inside the system to become available as the teaching artists, as the artists working inside. It's like Amy's describing, handing over the work to them, because there's an extra level of opportunity in their directness of speech. And just the final comment to make there is, I find the kind of unhelpful expectations on the student side is so much lower than people coming in from the outside expect. That in fact, there's so much more availability and willingness and creativeness just right there right, like on the surface available, that those who haven't worked in those settings, they don't know that's what you're coming into. You're coming into an intoxicatingly available opportunity for the aliveness of art.
Here, here.
Thank you, Eric. Wayne, does that speak to you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've made a living writing music, and boy, I wish I had written some of the songs that the guys write that we work with. Damn, why didn't I think of that? That's a better line than I ever came up with. And I think you're right. The willingness to be vulnerable, to talk about things that you wouldn't think people would be open to talking about. We've designed our syllabus to try to run through a lot of stages of development, and we try. We're not doctors, and we're not psychiatrists, and we're musicians, we're artists, we're lay people, but I know that it's therapeutic. I know it helps to be able to talk about difficult stuff. I served a federal prison term, and I don't know anyone that's doing time, that's done time, that didn't have something awful happen to them when they were a kid. And we can get men and women to write about these things in the songs. And my experience has been they want to talk about it. They want someone to hear their story. We all have a story, and it's important that the stories get heard. I couldn't agree more on the intoxication of doing this work, not only for us as teachers, but for the people we work with, the people that live in the prisons. They leave the writing workshops as high as we are. I mean, the guys tell me we can't wait till next week when we can get together and do this again. I mean, it's really exciting,
Well, Wayne, tell me this quickly. In building your programs, have there been any significant challenges that you've had to work against or overcome?
Yes, many. The big challenge that we've had has been official intransigence, official roadblocks that they throw at us. I've come to the conclusion that a lot of the people that work in prisons, that cruelty is the point. That the last thing they want to see is happy people in prison. There's the constant roadblocks of for example, we've worked in the LA County Jail for 6 years, and the officers themselves are usually the biggest roadblocks that we have to trying to get in a situation where they'll just leave us alone with the people that are living in the jail and let us do our thing. I think you guys in New Orleans, with the new sheriff, you've got a golden gift there. If she's willing and open-minded to bring in arts and corrections into the parish prisons, maybe one of you guys is the parish prison analogous to a county jail? Like people go there for under a year? Is that the way it works?
That's my.
That's how it's designed.
Supposed to be.
Right.
But they sometimes been there for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yes.
In theory.
Same now in LA. Yeah, they pulled a fast one, and now the guys are doing 10 years. The county is hard time. People, it's the hardest time. I would rather be in a prison as a prisoner. I would rather live in a prison than live in a county jail. It's a terrible time. And I think the need is greatest there because there's nothing to do. And, you know, that pecking order gets started and things can get tense. If people have something that can break the ice between different groups, that can show them that we are all the same, that we're all faced with the same challenges. You know, if we've got a group of, say, men in the county jail, and today we're going to write about children, and I've got a black gangster over here, and a norteño over there, and a white cracker over here, and they're all writing their songs, and they all want the same thing for their kids. They start to see, wow, man, that was cool. I like what that guy wrote. I like what he wrote. They can identify with each other. They can see the humanity that we all share, especially amongst prisoners. The prisoner class, you know, to share those things, to see that they have more in common than they have in difference.
Beautiful.
It's a breakthrough, I think. It's a breakthrough.
Thank you. Yeah. Let's go over to Kentucky. Hassan? Oh, he's not in Kentucky. He's in Ohio.
Well, but the Ohio airport is actually in Kentucky, so it's really weird. Yeah, the Cincinnati airport's in. Yeah, never mind. I don't know. I'm just kind of full up with the conversation so far. I'm trying to think of what I was. So a couple of things. Wayne, I really was struck by that sense. I was having this conversation today with some federal legislative aides who are trying to get a handle on why corrections didn't work. And that's the exact thing I told them. It's because the people that we allow to come in don't want a better system, right? They want to be the ones telling people to sit down, shut up, and because I said so. As a system operator, having run a system with 1,300 employees, 36 facilities, 24 hours a day for 6 years, I think the biggest challenge was the idea that art, right? Well, that art was necessary. And I don't think it's an optional, right? This art is necessary. It's that piece that we're missing in reclaiming souls and putting folk back closer to good, right? And one of the things that I told my folks is they need to leave us more whole, not with more holes. And the way we fill those holes is through the gift of creativity. And so as I started rolling out those things, there was this pushback from every level, you know, because they think that, you know, one senator told me, you know, well, why are we giving art to the bad guys? My child doesn't even get art, right? And, you know, and I said, well, sir, your child's not, you know, if your child doesn't have a transformative experience, they're probably not going to be showing up at your place later with some attitude. So, but that creative, so changing the process was a hard part for me. Making a decision, even though every other part of the system said no, but knowing it, having come up through it and experienced it myself as a transformative way to get me out of that box, you know, I just kind of staked my ground and actually pulled some dollars out, even though we were being cut, and put it straight into it, right? Straight into doing the work. And the results speak for themselves. And so it was a matter of, you know, everybody was basically saying, well, you know, you're pretty much cutting your career short because this isn't going to work. And so it was a gamble for anybody that doesn't know the arts. Mm-hmm. It was a gamble for anyone that doesn't trust and have had a transformative experience that has really gifted them with the ability to move beyond their most difficult days. And so I think, you know, I've seen the conversation change some. And so those little pieces, and I think the part now is this big system piece, really, you know, finding a way to engage and build this conversation so that artists who come in all hippie don't frighten people who are administrators, and administrators don't turn off artists who are creators.
Here.
It's a great point. Who hasn't spoken on this question?
Can I say something really, really, really quick, like 1 minute?
Mary.
So really quick. We are keeping time. I let some folks go ahead because I know they had to jump off. I know Amy had to jump off, is jumping off, and Tasha I know is gonna be jumping off. So I wanted them, and I know Wayne, so I wanted them to have a little extra time because I know they won't be on with us for the duration. So that's why I let them go. Everybody else, y'all have 2 minutes because we gotta get through. And the most important part is the community jumping in and being able to ask y'all more pertinent questions, guys. So when y'all see my hands doing all this stuff, that means all right.
Dad would say, okay, that's orders from the quarters. All right. Imani.
What now I'm thinking I only got 2 minutes and I feel like I need to be talking real fast where, I love you from afar, but I'm stressed out. But anyway, to kind of echo Wayne's point, from my experience, the most important thing that I've learned about this work is that the larger systems don't want it to be done. Right. And so in that way, it really echoes, like I always think of my first and second year medical students who are like, I'm going to go to medical school and I'm going to prescribe this stuff and I'm going to save everybody. And then they realize insurance doesn't want to save everybody. And that's not, pharmaceutical companies don't want to save everybody, right? And so that's kind of how it is. So in this way, you're always pushing up against the broader social milieu and the broader social biases and stereotypes and issues in order to make the slightest bit of practical and actionable change, right? So it requires you to be steadfast and altruistic in many ways. Like when you've been doing this work for a long time, you understand that it's not about you. And you may not be able to pay something, but you still need to show up for those people who are expecting you to be there because they're relying on you in a way that you may not even be able to fully conceptualize, right? And so in that way, it's hard work and it doesn't benefit the prison systems and the larger social systems that support prison systems for healing to occur or justice to occur or to push for equity. It doesn't benefit them. So while we're working on healing and prescribing art, they're working on racial profiling and free labor. And while we're working on healing and all of these things, they're working on minimum sentencing laws. And while we're working on healing in the arts, they're working on implementing, structural violences and stresses and, all of these things. So you realize that while you're thinking you're going to go into this system and make this system better, right? The reality is that the system doesn't perceive itself as broken, right? And so the people that it's acting upon are the people who are readily oppressed. And so it's the people that we have to help because the reality is that the structural violences and the structure of the system doesn't see itself as being sick. So we can't heal something that doesn't perceive itself as being sick, but we can heal the people out of that system. And that's hard, that's rough. And that's hard work. And so it is that kind of thing where you have to be dedicated in a way that's difficult to articulate sometimes, But yeah, so that's my 5 seconds to where I go.
Thank you, Imani. Where's Lori Brooke? There she is.
Why do I have to follow Imani always? She's so much more brilliant. No.
Well, just one of your biggest.
I just want to say ditto. I mean, everything, I really appreciate Amy, calling up how difficult it is to be a white woman in this work and, not be apologetic all the time because it's, it's just as messed up how, it's just clearly working in the machine of white supremacy. It's, and it's very heartbreaking. And it, I can feel my grief coming up right now, just acknowledging that. There's also kind of recognizing that I think that the officers that work in the system are very damaged by it too. And finding a way, just kind of reminding myself that they're, how do you cage a human being and, treat, provide that kind of confinement without having something, not work so well in your own brain and heart. And so anyway, I find this work incredibly challenging. We went through 12 years of a funding drought. We had Arts and Corrections that started back in 1977. And, so I just have seen a whole lot of political ups and downs that have affected this moving forward. But I really believe that it needs to be funded by the state. It needs to be integrated into what the state machinery is anyway. It's just part of the healing stuff. I love hearing about all the kind of prescriptive healthcare sort of ideas. But what I want to say is just, I love that it has shifted and changed. And there were many years where I think all of the governors of California thought that they were going to be the president of the United States, like Ronald Reagan. So they wouldn't let people out. And over the last 5 or 6 years, we've really been able to have some wonderful artists come out and be able to work with them and bring them into working in this, into giving back, which is just the most wonderful opportunity. It's kind of like Vietnam. People, don't want to leave their brothers, sisters behind. And so to give this opportunity to have that kind of impact and healing, by one's, peer, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. And Rodessa and Angie, where are you? I see you there. Great. Thank you, Lori.
It's wow, that I've been thinking about so much stuff as I've listened. I was fortunate enough as an artist going into the San Francisco jails by way of the California Arts Council, and I was under the directorship of Michael Hennessy. Michael Hennessy was one of the longest reigning sheriffs in San Francisco County, and he understood that something about how art saves lives. And I think he sent out thought, and we came in, and he gave us room to experiment, to craft human beings. As I hear people talking, I have the privilege of working in a system where Michael would let you do pretty much whatever without a lot of ramifications or even boundaries. It was, he was really curious as to what can you make happen, and he knew that systematically the culture was at its wit's end in a lot of ways. More women were going to jail than ever before. Children are being lost to the system. And I simply wanted to find a way for women to craft their own story. I wanted women to say out loud what had happened to them. And that's a very ancient African way to approach art making, and it's spiritual. It's shamanistic. And I didn't even know that I knew those things when I started out. But as Mr. Cramer was just saying about writing songs and having all these different communities come together, and all of a sudden we realized, oh, we're more alike than unlike. And that was one of the things that Michael Hennessy gave me permission and my team permission to explore through the deep ancient history of storytelling through the literature in a lot of ways, as well as everybody was up for the inmates learning how to read, returning to books, and I didn't even know that all these things were so incredibly valuable as far as like raising a person's self-esteem, making one feel like she was a part of the system again, getting her to look at her responsibility to her children and to her family through a lens that was not about don't do this and don't do that, but what are we going to do about a system that's broken? What are we going to do about taking care of our families? What are we going to do about relieving our parents, of these heavy responsibilities? And I cannot emphasize enough the whole idea of understanding the magic and wisdom of my own African sensibilities and how it came into play, and the transformation that came with me becoming a better human being, which in turn, the word spread. And here I've been working on universities. I've been at Yale. I've been all over the country because young people are back to wanting to be artists and activists. And I'm teaching this stuff at that level. And again, I bring Angie in because I watched Angie grow into this incredible artist, healer, and she's teaching me a lot about mental health, because she's down on the ground with these people. So she's the one that's reintroducing how mental health has to be looked at more closely. And as her mentor, it's been really interesting to be out on the road with her and hear her talking to the young. I'm going to hand it over to Angie because I know we're kind of running out of time, but if that's something you want to say about just giving and being.
Well, I did want to say quickly that I heard the word prescribing art. And I love that idea. And I just, she's my great teacher. So I must remind us that at UCSF, with Dr. Eddie, UCSF HIV clinic is one of the first women's clinics, HIV positive women's clinics for Black and brown women.
In the United States.
In the United States. So Dr. Eddie saw Miss Jones' work, going back to prescribing art. And he saw Miss Jones' work, and he said, that's what my women need. Understanding that no amount of therapy, no amount of housing, no amount of, good pharmaceuticals, none of that, large checks was going to help, and sent the women to Miss Jones. And then, because I work so closely with her, we had our HIV circle. So I love the idea of prescribing art. And also the way that I always sell everything to the police is I use these two words. And I say, well, we are part of safety and security, because what happens is, when you throw in language people understand, idle time is the devil's workshop. And so what you don't want is to have that happen, right? And so we need to keep them busy. And then I also remind them that it's a public safety issue. So if we have it's going to be a public safety issue. Everybody comes home. How can we lace these folks before? Now, I love them. It is hard work and money. Yes. I was feeling you. And it's nice to have it put in PhD language, because I got a little more simple language, but I thank you. It is my hard work, but I also know how to speak to them, to have them understand this is a public safety issue, sir. And this is why we need to do it. And I always sell it like that, right? So when you see them crying or laughing, don't worry about it, because when they go home, they'll be safer to be with. And they like that.
Well, that's good. That's the public interest. Safety and security.
Well, cops love that because it's the truth. Yeah. If we can heal folks and they can leave better, which is very crazy to think about, but if folks can leave better than they came, whatever that means, then we hardworking people have done. We have done what we were asked to do, what we were called to do, and that was to send a mother home
to her children.
Much better. Read at night, help them with their schoolwork. I mean, it's just and we measure success in small increments.
Thank you so much. I wonder if anybody who's joined us has a question. I didn't see any in the chat. I saw a lot of applause lines. Love it. I mean, this has been such a stimulating conversation. Does anybody have questions, whether you were already speaking or not?
Yeah.
Yes, Wayne.
Yeah, I have a question for my co-workers down there in New Orleans. If you need some help, we would be happy to jump in with you. We will be happy to share our coursework and our philosophical approach, and we can also help you with instruments. And I know a lot of players in New Orleans. We've kind of been holding off to try to break through at Angola, but we have experience with county jails or parish prisons, as you refer to them down there. And I think we might be able to, provide some instruments and maybe a kind of structure for local players. If you want to do it kind of the way we do it, which is I go out and call up my friends that are professional musicians and task them with being of service to their fellows. And most of them love it. and once they come into the facility and conduct a workshop, they're sold. They really enjoy the experience. So I'm just saying, if you need some help, count us in, man. We'll help you.
That's wonderful, Wayne. That's so New Orleans. I want to really just quickly shout out Mama Sato, who's on here, who we love, 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 love. One of our amazing artists here in New Orleans, our activist who is also an artist in New Orleans, who's been working inside of prisons forever, as well as Dr. Sarah Woodard from the Arts Council, who is also, and who's one of my colleagues, who's also working inside of the prisons here in New Orleans and Louisiana as well. So I want to recognize them really quickly.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, thank you for joining us. Do either of you have a comment or a question? This is open mic season. À toi?
No, I'm just listening. It's just great to be around my comrades. Listening is so interesting. I couldn't help but substitute the prison for schools. Everything that we're saying is the same thing that should be happening in the schools. So I'm just, my mind is just going like, this is the reason why they talk about the pipeline from schools to prison. Well, they're treating them all the same exact way. And what they did in New Orleans, they took the arts out of the school. They took the bands out. They took the music out. They took all the, and then they wonder why the kids are not buying into the system. So I'm just listening. Hey, Rodessa, it's just so good to hear her. Woo! You guys have a great panel tonight. Phenomenal. Yeah, phenomenal.
I have a question.
How are you? You know, I just wanted to suggest that that it be suggested to the new sheriff in New Orleans that we are open to creating an arts and healing academy with all of us from across the country moving in and out of that particular facility, because it is a new day, you know, and this is art for this is art and healing for the 21st century. And I think that artists know something about what that is. And I think it was one of the a very famous choreographer from California said that people from California believe anything's possible, and I've seen a lot of things be realized through the healing arts channels that in and out of the jails. It just has to do with all of with the music, the art, the religion, all the things that we bring to our work, you know, in the name of creativity. And I would love to be a part of that as well. I'd love to be a part of that system that brings that creates ways for us to move in and out of these spaces, as I do in the universities. You know, it's like when I worked in Africa, in South Africa, the administration was just so wide open to whatever the artists might need to further what we're doing, what we're making happen. You know, and I think it's just time.
Thank you, Wayne and Rodessa. I'm sure you're going to get some calls after this. Linda has her hand up. Linda Seabright.
Yeah, hi. Well, I just wanted to introduce myself quickly. I have a foot in both California and New Orleans. I'm in New Orleans right now, and it's starting to pour outside. So if I'm talking too loudly, that's why. But talking about healing through the arts, I actually am a radio DJ as well as a meditation instructor. And after Katrina, I came down here from California and did a radio documentary on healing New Orleans through music. I have a radio show on an NPR affiliate, so that aired there. And in the earthquakes after the earthquake in California, I did the same thing. So I really believe in oral history and healing through telling stories. Randy, hi, I've met with you before.
Hi.
Also, how's it going? A friend of Jean's who jumped off with the Ella Project. So I'm active in the community, and I'd really like to offer my services as a meditation instructor. I do something called jazzmeditation.com, and I would love to bring that into the system here in New Orleans. Thank you, and fantastic speakers, all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Randy, did I see your hand, or will you just say?
You did.
Good.
I'd like to take us back to that idea about how this is needed in the schools as well. Eric and I helped start a project here in New Orleans called Artist Corps, which hired musicians and culture bearers to go into the schools to renew the music traditions, the band traditions. And though it's beyond the purview of this group, we might keep in mind that this could what you create here could spill over into artist corps. Perhaps some of the insights that you generate for prisons, as we've ironically noticed that it's kind of a sad paradox that what we need in the prisons, we also need in schools. And if we did it in the schools, we might not need it in the prison. So let's keep in mind that Artist Corps is here in New Orleans and very well headed by Sonia Robinson.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Matt, did you have a question?
Yes. Hassan, you saw my comment in the chat? So I actually had the experience of going to Orleans Parish Prison this morning for the first time and taking a tour. And we got to speak with several of the deputies of varying levels and the folks in custody. And one of the things that's going on, and we were hearing this from the folks working there, that they're just understaffed, and their main, this is under the previous sheriff, the main competitor for employment is Target. And my wife, Mimi, who some of you know, wisely commented, and they, at least at Target, they get a discount. And so Susan is going to be looking, I think, at raising the rate, the pay rate. And so there's going to be a big push to hire new folks. Do you see, Hassan, and others, any possibilities around maybe actively trying to recruit artists or people in criminal justice with arts backgrounds as part of this effort?
Yeah. So, yes, one of the things that I had the opportunity to do when I was commissioner was actually a pilot where I actually retooled 2 probation officer positions into community support positions, stationed them in the school, not like school resource officers, but they were actually, every time a young person experienced some episode, they got the referral, they did an assessment, then they did an assessment for the family, and they referred them out to creative engagement, to therapy, to art. And in just 1 year, the school district saw a serious decline and so, long story short, I think that model would be amazing. And the idea that we're not looking for criminal justice folks anyway, right? We're looking for social justice folks and people with social and psychology backgrounds, then to be part of that conversation and building that culture. Going back to what Wayne said, it's a culture that is so deeply rooted that we have to be seating new folk there in order for them to, and supporting them so that they don't get set up with the, well, that's not how we do it here. That's how they talk about it up there, but that's not what we really do. And really, that leadership, being willing to stand behind that. But I think I got some great thoughts about that. So cool. Yeah. My mind started like, why not? Why not? Because her big thing to us is Susan's, is that she has so many priorities she's trying to deal with. And I'm concerned that we in the arts, to her, even with her best intentions, are going to have to be put on the back burner. So anything we can do to help her achieve these other goals while we're getting ours done, I think will be helpful.
We need to be part of her creative solutions.
Yeah.
Matt, in New York, Carnegie Hall is a re-grantor for the probation centers around the city called Neon Arts. And so what they've made these probation centers are creative activity centers, both for the people who are going there for their parole requirements and community members, so that they are actually mixing in creative workshops in the parole center, and it becomes a whole different vibe of who's there, why they're there, the feel of the place. And man, it's one of those unusual interface opportunities where you get a center of, that's usually full of unhappiness and tension, turning into a creative hub for the whole community.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
And I do think
what Wayne is doing in terms of building a center in Los Angeles for kids coming out, and arts activities and ways for families to appreciate what their young people are doing. Some of these kids have never been appreciated by their families. It can be really amazing. Yeah,
So,
Barry?
Yeah, so for me, why this panel has been just so I don't ever go into anything with a preconceived notion. So why this panel has been so important is because you're hearing all of these different ideas and perspectives from all over, right? And so and this is like opposite of the role I always just play, period. And Imani can tell you that, and probably Sarah too. I always start at a million. People got to bring it all the way down for me. So when people see the picture, I see the frame. And so so now I'm playing the opposite role. I would like to see this happen again, because all of the ideas I think are amazing. Like we learned about the work with Carnegie Hall, with Sarah and Ayan and them about neon. But the thing is that New Orleans is fucked up. Louisiana. So we got a lot of fucked up stuff here. The laws are not just Napoleonic, they are Jim Crow for real. So it prevents us from doing a lot of amazing, great things, because believe me, we have tried. I've been doing this work for 30 years and I'm only 49. So we tried all of those things, and I'm still here, is my point. We want to do those things. We have to change a lot of those things. And for instance, our DA right now is only our DA because he stepped outside of Louisiana to put a light on how fucked up Louisiana is. And that's how he won. And he truly won by the skin of his teeth. That's how messed up this city and this state is. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that everything y'all saying is great and amazing. I think that we need to keep this up with this national piece, because we need y'all for real. If it wasn't for having national eyes and hands inside of here, we'll probably still be back 60 years. So we need that. We need that push. We need all of these things. The art, and I believe in preventative and measures. I believe in being proactive. Always intervention is always, a last measure. We're gonna have criminals, people gonna do stuff or whatever. We're gonna have that. That's just what it is. That's human nature for some folks. However, we can prevent a lot of these things from happening, then we want to do that. People called out a lot of preventative things that we can put in place. Like you heard here from Imani and Mama Satwa, we had arts in our schools. I'm born and raised, I'm a charity baby. We had arts in our schools. I learned dance, introduced to poetry by our school psychologist, was introduced to art, spoken word, performing and competing at 7 years old. Spelling bee from her, not from my teacher, from the school psychologist. Introduced that, already infusing that, why that was so important and ingrained in me. So all of these things, right? We didn't have a week off for Mardi Gras back then. We went to school every day except Mardi Gras and Lent. And Ash Wednesday, we were back in school Thursday. So we didn't have those things. So all those things have been taken out of our schools, and now they come in with maybe put it in school. No, we had it, right? And so we should do both. We can do, but we have them in a prison and in the schools. They can happen. We don't have to,
Gary, we have the same problem in California.
Yes.
Arts were ripped out of the school system. We lost music teachers. They fled
everywhere.
Yeah, and so we have a lot of rebuilding to do. If we really,
so let's fight together.
Arts education back in the mainstream. It's
Yes.
not a thrill. It's something very important, because one of our speakers said earlier, we all could recognize the creativity in each other and the humanity of each other if we just had the means to do it. And so artists bring the means, and now we have an opportunity to figure out the how with the new sheriff who's coming on board. And I think next week's discussion is going to be phenomenal, because you'll have people like Norris Henderson, who is one of the co-chairs with you, Tueri, of the CARE, is it the CARE committee?
Yeah.
The transition team. And so these recommendations will flow directly into her. I mean, how we sort out what's been said tonight, it's been a very rich conversation. I have to thank all of you because I've learned a lot from listening to everybody. And your passion is so inspiring, and it's certainly something that feeds my soul as well. Tasha, you have a comment? Tasha, you're still here.
I put off my other plans because I just told Eric my friends are, they're understanding. But I think Imani's hand was up first, though, if you want to.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I can. I was just going to say that, I think everybody is touching on a really important point as to why we don't have arts in the school systems and in the prison systems. And a part of that is because it forces us to engage with our own humanity. And it does ask you and require you to look at another person and say that there is a reciprocity, a human exchange that exists there. And oftentimes what happens is, it's particularly in our society, whether it's New Orleans or California, whatever, is that there is not a desire to look at the person next to you as a human of equal worth and equal value. Yeah. And so art in and of itself, even historically, right? Like one of the things Rodessa talked about is like looking at these ancient texts and you're looking at Cicero and all of those people, there was this idea that art and intellect was associated with worth. And if you put them in all of the school systems, then you're leveling much of that playing field, and there's not a desire to do that. And so when we're trying to put the arts into schools, and when we're talking about putting arts into the prison systems, we're not just talking about, helping them overcome, whatever traumas they could have experienced. We're also talking about leveling that playing field of perceived humanity and perceived worth in our society. And that's one of the reasons why there's so much pushback, because how dare you say that this physician is the same as this inmate, right? Or this person who's going to look at this art from MoMA is the same as someone who's making art that's better than what you see in MoMA, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to point out that that's a big part of that issue, is the perception of humanity and the perception of equal value and equal worth in society. And many people have no interest in confronting. Mm-hmm. And so I just wanted to note that, since that's a part of what we've been discussing here, even if it's on the periphery, and that's that social justice issue.
True. Yeah. Thank you. Tasha?
Yeah, I'll be really quick. I was just going to tell you all, if this is helpful, if you're trying to convince people of the value of art in various ways. I have a study coming out that's looking at art as a form of data, and some of you mentioned there are some things that people disclose or share only in art, or they need the art in order to be able to do that. And the perspective that this article is well, if that's true, then there are things that we cannot know about our populations, about our communities, about safety, about what people need in order to not wind up in a correction system. All those kinds of things that we might want to know about health and safety in our communities might not be within reach if we are not looking to the arts as a form of data. And so it was a study comparing. We did a study of violence, basically perceptions of violence among women and girls in Louisville, and compared survey data to the data we got from them in creative writing, and saw that there was a lot of distinction between the two. So it can become a way to not only can various populations create art, but what does that maybe tell us about them and what their needs are before they enter the justice system? Once they're in the justice system, what do they need to not come back into the situation later on? There's maybe things that we require the arts to actually be able to confront. And in part for those reasons that Imani just mentioned, that we need to see people as human beings if we want to be able to support their health as human beings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, Matt and Matt, I'm getting ready to go. My class is still waiting for me.
Okay.
So I'm going to cut, and Alma, I will talk, but I'll be back in San Francisco by Monday. So reach out to me some more.
Will do.
Come back again. I'm sorry I came on so late.
And everybody's welcome to come next week for the wrap up.
And thank you all so much for your
Thank
work,
you.
for your
Yeah.
joy and your gist and your wisdom and your magic. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing, Angie. Y'all have a good one.
Yeah, good
Okay.
night.
All right, we're about to wrap up. Does anybody have any compelling final thoughts to this wonderful conversation?
I'll just say this was as good as I thought it would be. I've been looking at all of your backgrounds, many of you I know, and I thought this was going to be just alchemical. I mean, just really, and I think we in New Orleans have to see it as our job to be as welcoming to all of you as we go through this process, and that we know that visits to New Orleans are themselves an inherent good. And so,
True.
you know, we'll try to make that possible. Randy that wasn't mentioned is the organizer of something called Improv NOLA Conference, and it's a conference that's looking at improvisation across the art forms, and that's
and non-art forms
like
politics.
And we're seeing
that in politics.
We're seeing that as a home, a local home for this discourse going forward. So anyway, thank you.
Wayne, do you have a final note for us? I see that guitar.
I will say that having experienced this incredible conversation run with great distinction by you, Alma, that I don't want my money back.
You don't want your money back. Well, we're so relieved. Thank you. Thank you for your consideration and your generosity. We really appreciate you, Randy. Scott Wayne. Right.
Thank you, Hassan.
Amazing group.
Thank you, Eric, Tasha, Lori.
Thanks, everybody. A wonderful conversation.
See you, Eric.
See you, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all. Look forward to being in touch.
Great meeting you.
You too.
Love hearing about your work. And tell us more about the Justice Department. I participated in Youth and Arts confab quite a while back with JJ, whatever the acronym is.
I'm excited to lean in and see where I can be of more support. So just let me know.
Wonderful. Good work.
Thank you. Y'all take care.
All right.
Thanks, Hassan.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Wayne.
Super, Wayne.
Welcome. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Call me.
Matt,
Okay.
don't forget to get the chat.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
I will. I will,
yeah,
and we
you need
will.
the chat. I want to save it too to say something.
Yeah.